Good afternoon, everyone. A couple of things that struck me while Jennifer was speaking. One is that Jennifer said she's relatively new to DJS. I'm relatively new to Cambridge University Press as well. I've been there only 25 years. But since Cambridge has been around since 1534, I guess I can say that. The other thing that Jennifer said, Jennifer went through the workflow, a basic, typical workflow for a journal really well, very thoroughly. I was going to talk a little bit about that, but honestly, I don't think I need to now. But what really struck me about that is that I've been coming to the SSP meetings for a long time, and I'd say 6 or 7 years ago, maybe there was still a general discussion about what the best workflow should be. And I think there's a general agreement now. That's basically a journal workflow. There's some differences here and there. Everybody has their own way of doing things, their own approach. But that's basically it. So there's all I can do beyond that is talk from my own experience. So since I have been at Cambridge for 25 years, I guess I can share the Cambridge experience with you. I started out there as a production manager in journals in 1989. We had maybe 12 journals at the time. We have quite a few more now. I'll show you in a slide in a little while. Before I was at Cambridge, I was at Allen List. Allen List doesn't exist anymore. So a lot of the journals published at List exist now. They were bought by Wiley just after I left for Cambridge. But they were an STM publisher, very successful, mid-sized STM publisher in the late 70s and in the 80s. So that's pretty much my biography, and I guess I'll just talk about the Cambridge experience a little bit. Whoops, no, I went too far. Oh yeah, of course. There we go. So a lot of you are probably familiar with the Cambridge list in books or in journals. We're pretty diverse. We publish about 350 journals worldwide. We publish maybe 550 books a year out of our New York office and well over 1,000 new titles globally every year. So we publish in so many different disciplines as well. Some of you might be from STM publishers. Some of you might be from societies who focus on one particular discipline. At Cambridge, one of the great things about working at Cambridge, but one of the dilemmas we face is that we work in so many different disciplines. Just in our relatively small list in the New York office, we publish political science journals, materials research journals, material science journals, journals in environmental sciences, history, humanities. It's quite a diverse list. And along with that, of course, comes a multiplicity of styles. So that's something that we have to grapple with all the time. I'm interested, too, to know the audience I'm speaking to. I realize SSP brings in people from a lot of different types of publishers. So if you wouldn't mind indulging me for a moment, just from a show of hands, how many people here are from commercial publishers? Just one, two, a couple, okay. How about university presses? Hello, brethren, colleagues. And I know I see some of my vendors out here, or vendors who would like to work with me, at least. But there must be more vendors out here, too. Very good. Okay, and then there's still a lot of people who haven't raised their hands. So there's a big grouping of other, or society. There must be society people here. There we go. It's a lot of society publishers. Okay. And there's probably a sprinkling of librarians, and maybe then the other, whatever that is. So just a little bit more about Cambridge. Cambridge, so we do have people from from quite a diverse group of publishers here. Cambridge is, as university presses go, of course, we're one of the two big ones, Cambridge and Oxford. Even in the U.S., we have a big presence. Our major office, of course, is in Cambridge. We have a big office in New York. We have about 250 employees there. Like I said, we publish about well, this year we have 90 journals being published out of the New York office, and about 550 books. About 65,000 pages coming out of the New York office, about 220,000 worldwide. So I think we're probably a little bit bigger than, certainly than most of the U.S. university presses, and along with Oxford, one of the two big UPs in the world. As a commercial, in comparison to the commercial publishers, though, we're not so big. We're nowhere near as big as Elsevier, Wiley Blackwell, Sage, Taylor and Francis, and we find ourselves competing with them sometimes. So it's an interesting niche that we're in, I suppose. I don't know if you'll agree with me, but I think it is. So that's just a measure of the growth that we've been experiencing over the last few years. I was looking at a presentation I made about 6 years ago, and I mean, I knew it, I felt it, that we'd been growing this much, but to see that we had 58 journals back then, we have 91 now, and we have 10 more journals coming in for next year, maybe with, there might be a couple more still. So we're going over 100 journals out of the New York office soon, and that's beyond the titles, it's a lot more pages also. It's the rate in pages is probably higher than the rate in titles. And then we're dealing with all the complex issues that you're all dealing with in terms of publishing digitally, more rapid publication, and that sort of thing. So, oh, there we go. It's just taking a little bit to load. The workflow that I'm showing here is really very similar to the workflow that Jennifer described. She didn't have a timeline attached to it, but we'll accept manuscripts in from, well, Scholar One or Editorial Manager primarily. Of course, for some of our smaller journals, we publish for a number of small societies as well, and they don't really have the scale or the manuscript flow to warrant going to an editorial manager or to a Scholar One. So with those offices, say for Dance Research Journal or for Horizons, which is a small Catholic studies journal, the editorial office will just send us the article file in an email. It's very simple, straightforward. From a production viewpoint, of course, we would prefer to receive manuscripts through Scholar One, because Scholar One talks to our production tracking system. We can have an automatic upload to our tracking system. The metadata feeds right into it, and all our production editor has to do then is go to one of our FTP sites, take the manuscript file, and send it on to the next stage, whether it's copy editing or typesetting. So that would be the ideal workflow. So the pre-edit, which Jennifer described very nicely, is very important. That can save a lot of time up front. And the more information you have to give to your typesetter about the style, the reference style in particular, the better. You can really save a lot of time in your in the entire workflow if you do the pre-edit well. Manuscript to copy editor is next. There's been so much. We get so much pressure on us to publish rapidly, and in many cases that drives us to want to or to feel pressured to send manuscripts, to send the copy editing to the typesetters offshore, and we do that in some cases, but we have to be very careful about that. We put a great emphasis on copy editing at Cambridge, and we feel it's still very important to have subject area specialists, or to have people who, frankly, U.S.-based or UK-based copy editors who can work on our manuscripts. So we will usually send our manuscripts out to a U.S.-based freelancer rather than sending out to our typesetter for copy editing. Then manuscripts, of course, go to typesetting, and to the proofs go to the authors. That's all very typical. Is there anything that looks atypical in that workflow? Yes.
Can you talk about your turnaround for the copy editor?
Oh, for copy editors. Oh, sure. That actually is reflective of of a manuscript going out to a typesetter for copy editing, where we expect the turnaround times to be more rigorous, and where they may have a team working. So if there's, with a freelancer, of course, you run the risk of having that one person who's working on the journal, and if they're sick, or if they, of course, copy editors don't operate in a vacuum, so they might have taken other work. There is a risk involved there. But actually, what we've started to do is to build up some depth in even in our freelance copy editing. So we might have a primary copy editor, and then one, or depending on the size of the journal, 2 backup copy editors who can take some of the runoff if the primary is unable or overloaded at a particular time. But that is what we try to do, especially with our STM journals. We try to get a week for a manuscript, a week or less. I mean, you can get less. I don't like to push it too much, because I don't want to rush the copy editor. I think it's important to give them some time so they can do an adequate job. Yes, and this.
So we are looking at an article.
That's an article. Yes, that first view is that's our term for article by article publishing, right? And Jennifer described a number of different options in article by article publishing. I was going to talk a little bit about that later, but what we do in our first view for Cambridge means an article it's the fully citable article. So the article has been copy edited, typeset, proofs have been reviewed by the author, revised proof has been seen at least by the production editor, maybe by the author as well. So it's the article that will eventually appear in the issue. All right, does that answer your question? Okay, thanks. So we jumped ahead to the end of the workflow as well with first view publication. Side by side with that, there is the full issue workflow. Day one here is referring to the receipt of the final manuscript. So we have journals that operate in a real issue-based workflow, where the editor-in-chief will very carefully craft an issue to have particular types of articles, to have the right balance, the right mix of authors, and all that sort of thing. And I find that interesting, because to me the basic the building block of journal publishing now is no longer the issue. It is the article. I think everybody agrees with that. Yet we still have many editors who lovingly craft their issues, and we need to wait until we can't publish the issue until they're ready. The first view affords us the opportunity to publish an issue very quickly. We say here's the page budget. We've published 10 articles totaling 200 pages. That's the page budget for the issue. We can publish your issue now. And we do have journals where that's possible, but we have other journals where we have to have the exact right mix of articles, and we have to wait. So in a case like that, we may over the space of, say, a 4 to 6 week window, will receive all of the manuscripts for the issue. And that day one there is when, say, after 6 weeks, we received that final manuscript. And in most cases, the editor-in-chief knows what that final manuscript is. In some cases, he might not even know then. We might be in day 18 or something before he says, now I've got the right mix. But it keeps us on our toes, I guess. But so we've got otherwise it's the same as the first view workflow, essentially. I'm sorry if I'm straying away from the microphone a little bit. So manuscripts go to the copy editor and the typesetter, and then the only differences are, as you would expect, pagination for the issue and cover creation, maybe inclusion of the advertisements, if any, if we're still getting advertisements. Hopefully we are. So like I said, or maybe I haven't said yet, but we've been growing quite a bit. Most of our new work is with societies. I already referred to the number of disciplines that we work in. One of the other, we really want to streamline our processes as much as we can. And it's difficult with the number of disciplines that we publish in, the number of styles that we have to adhere to. Most of the styles are, again, styles that Jennifer referred to. We work in APA, AMA, CSE, Chicago. We have hybrid journal styles, hybrid society styles, and it's really difficult. I remember I was out a couple of years ago to visit our typesetters, and one of our typesetters told us that Behemoth Publishing has 500 journals and they have 3 templates, and XYZ publishers have 200 titles and they have 4 templates. Cambridge University Press has 15 titles with us and they have 18 templates. So it's, we've been trying, but it's really difficult. That actually is one of our projects now, to try to find maybe 3 or 4 different styles that we can use. While we, again, then you have to take into mind the print is still important, and the layout of the page, the PDF layout of the page is still important because we have to take into account trim sizes. So we have 3 basic trim sizes. You know, there's some variations, but 6x9, 7x10, and 8.5x11. So take those 3 trim sizes and then all the different style sheets and all the different disciplines, and it becomes very difficult, or challenging at least, to narrow that down to 3 or 4 templates. I think what our best bet is probably going to be to get to 2 templates for each trim size. That's going to be a lot of work, but I think it'll be worthwhile when we do that. It'll certainly be good for my staff. It should make things easier for them. It should make things easier for the typesetters that we work with, and I think it'll make it attractive to potential future society partners who might be thinking about a change in style, and we can say, you can try one of these. One of the things that we've been doing is we have continued to invest in staff at Cambridge University Press. And a lot of publishers have, well, we all outsource different aspects of our work. A lot of production editor work has been outsourced by some companies. I realize that. We still have a fairly big production editor staff in the New York office in Cambridge. Well, actually in the Cambridge office as well. I have a staff of, including myself, 9 people. We'll probably, or at least hopefully, add another production editor with the 12 new journals coming in for next year. And it's a mix. I've got some people who have been with me for, I have 3 people who have been with me for somewhere between 10 and 20 years, and then there's a gap. There was stabilization for a little while, and then the rest of my team has been with me for 3 years or less. But I find it to be a really good mix of, you know, old school production values and, say, more of the facility that the 20-something crowd has with social media and just with computer technology in general. And it's just good to be challenged sometimes too. I try to hire people who are just smart and ambitious, and I'm willing to take a chance on them, like moving along to a different part of the company or even to another company for a little while, if they'll come in and challenge my assumptions and challenge the assumptions of people on my staff. So I actually consider that just one of the most important things I do now is hiring a new person. It influences the existing staff. It influences myself. One of the things that we pride ourselves on is the way we manage relationships with our societies, and I'm looking for production editors who can, say, distill complex problems or complex situations into a very common or a very understandable messaging, whether it's verbally or in email or a letter writing or whatever. It can be. It's been fun putting together a team, frankly, but I think it's really important that we've continued to make that investment. Beyond just the simple fact of keeping a staff in New York, we've tried to keep a continuing education process happening as well. I happen not to have any junior staff people at this meeting. I will be joined by a production colleague a little later in the meeting, but she's more of a senior person. But I do like to send my junior staff to meetings like this, or at least to the SSP webinars. I try to get my team involved in those. I've invited some of our vendors to come in and conduct seminars for our team. Some of those have been quite valuable as well. So really need to expend the effort to continue the education of your staff and yourself as well. So those are some of the systems that we use. I'm sure they're all pretty familiar to you. Scholar One Editorial Manager. We have a proprietary content management system. Although we may, it's something that we basically built ourselves, and we may actually be looking for an off-the-shelf content management system at some point in the relatively near future. The Adobe comment and markup tools in PDF, Jennifer talked about that and showed some examples. And we still include in a lot of our instructions for contributors, we allow authors to send in a list of email corrections, but we're really trying to steer them toward the PDF markup. And beyond that, what I would really like to do is to take advantage of some of the or the XML-based proof correction tools that a number of vendors who are here can tell you about if you ask them. Or even if you don't ask them, I'm sure they'll tell you. But there are some very smart tools out there. I've seen the demos, and if we can manage to make it cost effective, I'd really like to take advantage of those. I think that's really important. That can be a big time saver for you. Human tools, I mentioned continuing education, and so that person is not, it's not 2 o'clock in the afternoon and they're tired. It's just a measure of the dedication of my staff. That photo was actually taken on a Saturday. One of the things that we've done that might be a little bit different is I mentioned that we publish with a lot of societies, big and small. For some of our bigger societies, we've formed sort of informal production teams. So we'll have one of the senior people, either myself or Catherine Pajuani, who's the production manager for my group. One of us would be the team leader. Then the primary production editor would be the main person, the focal point of communication between Cambridge Production and the society. And then we'd have at least 1 and maybe 2 backup production editors. So, I mean, those backup production editors, they have their own lists, but they would be involved in any meetings we had. They would be trained in the style of the journal or journals. Materials Research Society, for instance. Not sure if there's any MRS people here, but we've been publishing with the Materials Research Society for about 5 years. They came, when we started working with them, they had 3 publications, a research journal, magazine, and an online proceedings that consists of about, well, there are 2 primary meetings, and we publish articles from the meetings, about 2,400 articles a year, something like that. But the research journal comes out 24 times a year, and the magazine is a monthly with very high production values. And then there's the online proceedings library. That's the proceedings with the thousands of articles. We've also started up 2 new publications with the MRS. So that's a big project for us. So we have a primary production editor. Actually, we have 3 people. We have one person who works on the research journal, the magazine, and one of the 2 new journals. And then we have another person who works on the proceedings and the other new journal. With our society partners, those people are all there. The MRS has 2 annual conferences. One's here in Boston and one's in San Francisco. For the Boston meeting, we'll send up a couple of the production people so they'll get to meet our society partners. Now, MRS happens to be the biggest society that we work with in the U.S. There are others that are important, say American Political Science Association, for instance. That's a huge society, 18,000 members. We have 3 journals with them, and I've done something very similar. We have a senior person who sort of oversees the team. And then we have 2 production editors, one of whom works on 2 of those journals, and the other one has 1. So they're both part of the team. Now, the APSA is based in D.C., so we go back and forth. We'll go down there sometimes. They'll come up and see us. They were up to see us just a couple of weeks ago, and we had that team meeting. We had our senior person. We had both production editors. There was an editorial person there as well. But that's what we're looking to do with all of our big society journals now, form these teams. I learned the hard way, really, when 2 years ago I had a production editor who suffered a terrible accident, a terrible injury, and she was out for 6 months. And I suddenly had to find immediate backup for the 15 journals on our list. She happened not to have any of these big society journals, but it was immediate. We had to find somebody right away. So the team came together, and everybody pitched in, and everybody picked up the slack. But she was out of the office for 6 months, and it just made me think, what would happen if the production editor for Journal of Materials Research suddenly had an accident, or suddenly decided that she wanted to be a plumber or a professional skateboarder or something like that. So that's when I decided, we need to form these teams. And it's been good in a couple of ways. I mean, obviously it fills a need for us, but it's also lent some prestige to the production editors, or a sense of prestige to them, I think. They realize that these are important projects. They're able to travel a little bit. That's a perk, or at least it allows a junior member of the team to feel a real sense of responsibility toward the company and toward the project. So I think that's been an important achievement for us. It's not technological, or it's not. Maybe it seems obvious in hindsight, but it needed to be done, and it was a big help. And then internal advancement, I should mention that. For quite a while, we only had 3 or 4 production editors and myself, and that was it. I mean, if anybody wanted to advance within the company, the only thing I could tell them was keep your eyes open for job postings, because there really wasn't very much of a place to go within our department. The Materials Research Society really changed that, as I knew it would when we first started working on that project. But that's where the really rapid growth that you saw on one of the earlier slides has occurred for us from that point. And now I have some levels. I was able to promote one person from the production editor for the MRS project to department manager, and trust her with other big side projects. I was able to create the new role of associate production editor. So I've been watching over the years, an army of really smart assistants go to grad school, or go to the legal industry, or go somewhere where they could make more money than in scholarly publishing. I know there's a lot of glory involved in what we do, but some people are going for the pecuniary interests instead. So I was finally, just a little thing, but I was able to create this new level of associate production editor, and I promoted one person into that role already. So that was a big step for us, I think. Okay. I'll go. I'm being told I need to move along. So this might seem obvious too, but my department works very closely with the rest of the departments. I think one of the things that Cambridge does that might be interesting is, just as within production we form teams to work with our societies, when we maintain the relationship with the society, we the teams, the different divisions within Cambridge work very closely together. So I think this happens most visibly when we're looking for new work. We'll very often go and talk to potential society partners. We'll bring, the editorial person will usually head up the team, but then the marketing person, salesperson, production is very closely involved right from the start. We'll go to the presentation. We'll be involved in most of the preparatory meetings. And then when we do win the project, it's a great help to my department that we've had someone involved from the start. These are some of the, actually, a little bit of this is what includes the sort of thing that Jennifer's covered already. Manuscript ahead of print, publishing, continuous publishing. What we call continuous publishing is actually article-by-article publishing in an online journal that does not include volumes, or I'm sorry, does not include issues. So, for instance, our publications of the Astronomical Society of Australia, it's online only. We have one volume, no issues, and we'll publish the articles within that volume for 1 year. We started collaborating with RightsLink, particularly in terms of processing open access articles, the web-based correction tools I talked about. Behavioral and Brain Sciences is a really interesting journal for us. That's a journal's been around for about nearly 40 years now. It consists of treatments, and a treatment consists of a target article, which is not really a research article, but more a summation of recent research or maybe a refutation of some long-held theory. Then there's there's peer-reviewed commentary of that target article by maybe 25 experts in various fields, and then a reply by the author in the same treatment to each of those commentators. We've just started doing, actually just a couple of weeks ago, is publishing the unedited version of the target article. The target article is the one component of that journal that can really stand on its own, and there is a perceived need to get that out as quickly as possible. Journal of Financial and Quantitative Analysis, we publish manuscripts immediately upon receipt. Journal of Linguistic Geography, that's a new journal we've just started publishing. It's online only. The title explains pretty much what it's about, but the feature there is that we're using SVG images to create these scalable maps with audio embedded. That has an obvious. You can see what the need would be for that with the linguistics journal, or you can hear, I suppose. You don't see, you can hear. Continuing challenges include open access, supplemental material. Maybe we can cover that in the questions if anybody wants to, as I know we need to move on. But we just get more and more supplemental files. We love publishing supplemental files, but it's definitely a challenge. It's a little bit outside the normal workflow, and it's also material that is not part of the subscription price. It's something we're going to have to come to grips with really soon. The last one, maximizing production efficiency. I know everybody has to do that. I just want to mention this really quickly. Tension between speed and quality. I'd be really interested to hear what other people think about that. That's something I feel I have to grapple with every day. When I talked about copy editing before, and so Cambridge still places a very high importance on copy editing. I mean, we have sent some of our journals out for copy editing to offshore suppliers, and in some cases they do a very good job. In other cases, we haven't been so successful with that, and we've had some problems that we've had to deal with. So if you're going to send, if you want high quality copy editing, you might have to get a subject area specialist. You might have to have an experienced copy editor who's here in the U.S. or in the U.K. But if you do that, you may be sacrificing speed a little bit. So I don't have a ready answer for that, but maybe that's something we want to talk about in the discussion later on. And that's it. So I think the last thing is the Stanley Cup playoffs are going on. I just wanted to end with a hockey reference, and wanted to say that we have to take chances sometimes. Sometimes you have to be willing to make a mistake. That's the best way to learn sometimes. Don't want to make too many of them, though. So thank you.